Hello, my name's Stephen Grinnell from Energy Medicine, and this is my podcast on habits. I've done a little bit on habits before and looked very much at how habits can be used and multiplied, magnified to be able to help with changing something with rehabilitation. So I've used things like standing, walking, running, different sort of sports movements, different skills. And I found that most of my clients find the changes that we've looked at before with doing things at a certain time, doing things for a certain amount of time, like a 6-minute walk test where you focus very much on a particular activity, people can ingrain that and obviously bring that into their life quite easily. Where the challenges come, and I found this on my own journey as well as working with people over the last few weeks, is when you're trying to integrate that into a longer term habit. So people can practice things and they get used to them, and in a controlled environment, we're really quite good. So we can work quite well on, right, we're getting up in the morning and I'm going to do my 6-minute walk, and I really think about what I'm doing, and that's great. And you get that into a habit and you start moving and you can do it in that context. The problem then comes with translating that into everyday life so that it becomes more automatic. And that is what I wanted to talk to you about today. So lots of things work on triggers, lots of things work on things like habit stacking, doing things in association with something else. I use getting up in the morning and having a drink and doing all of your rehabilitation exercise first thing in the morning. The thing that I did stress was that 95% of our life is on automatic pilot. And in saying that, it made me think about lots of things that we do that are automatic. So I was driving the other week, I was coming into the clinic. I live in Stratford, there's a lot of roadworks as there is everywhere at the minute. And as I'm driving along, I was like, it's Friday. So I'd come down my own little locals route, trying to manipulate all of the traffic, all of the schools, all of the challenges that you have on a normal commute run. And it's Friday, and the problem with Friday is it's bin day. So everywhere there was recycling bins, bins for the black bins for the normal rubbish, garden waste, food waste. So there's bin lorries everywhere. So we ended up queuing to get round what should be a 15-minute commute, then turned into a 25-30-minute commute. And all it was is I just followed the same habits that I did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, got to Friday, I forgot it's bin day. So within that, we're all accustomed to have those sorts of experiences. Now, if 95% of all of the activities and everything that you do is automatic, that only gives 5% from a change point of view. So there's only 5% that you can consciously think about. So in the driving example I'll give, you've got 5 days. I know 4 days, the way that you go, it's perfect. It's automatic pilot. You're thinking about something else. I'm thinking about the clients I'm going to see, things I've got to do, things I can't forget, like I need to bring this and this to work. So we all have those experiences. Or you might be driving down a very familiar route, and I do this quite a lot because my clinic's based right in the middle of Stratford. Sometimes I'll drive down a particular road and head towards the clinic as opposed towards a shop or to where I'm actually going, because I'm sort of thinking on autopilot, maybe chatting in the car, and then suddenly you go the wrong way. Now those are very, very simple examples, but actually if you look at your life over a day, all of the tasks that you do are automatic. You don't think about them. All you have is triggers to go and do various tasks. So I've tried shaving left-handed, very weird, don't do that, I'll cut my lip. I've tried washing my hair and actually doing that the other way around, so actually using my left hand to wash my hair and hold the bottle and all sorts, and you got coordinations all over the place. Now, you might question, why am I changing things? Well, you've learned to have it in a skill in a particular way, and it's very easy to talk about practical things because it's things you can see straight away. It's then thinking about mental things. So it could be things like diet, it could be things like communication, it could be doing things on a regular basis, whatever that is, whether it's exercise, whether it's eating healthier, whether it's making sure that you go out more often and you socialise with people. So it's all about lots of little habits where you get into the habit of doing something or you get into the habit of not doing something. But you've only got 5%. So I've been trying to break this down so that people can apply some of what I've talked about in other aspects of their life, and also then look at how you can bring things that you've learned, particularly from a rehab point of view, into everyday life. So last night I finished with a lovely gentleman who's had tendonitis. He's was struggling with walking. He goes out, walks his dog, was struggling with that, wanted to do longer walking, quite extended distances. Seen him sort of face to face in the clinic, so we've done quite a lot of work. We've changed fundamentally over a treatment period how he walks, how he stands, how he moves. So he walks, as he would call it, dynamically. But he has to relax and he has to think about it. So if he's on a long walk, he can walk quite dynamically, quite fast. So he's sort of around 4 miles an hour pace. It takes quite long strides. He's got quite a dynamic leg movement. He feels all the muscles working differently. It's brilliant. What he's trying to incorporate is how to do that, which is partly where this has come from. How do you do that in everyday life? So I'm just literally wandering to the shops. Now, when you wander into the shops, the 5% is thinking about, I must remember butter, cheese, eggs, whatever you go in there to buy, as opposed to, this is how I walk, because we don't do things in segments. We do lots of things where we focus on one aspect. So when I say to people, do a 6-minute walk, it's much easier because all you've got to do is focus on that 6 minutes. It's a short period of time. When you look at doing something where you wander into the shops, which might only take 6 minutes in the same time, your brain's thinking about, what have I got to get from the shops? What do I need? If I'm cooking something, I need this. If I'm getting something, I need whatever. So I've cut my foot, I need a plaster, or whatever it is. You're not thinking about the walking. And it's about those points. How do you make that aspect automatic? So how do you raise your game? Now, it's easy. You can sit and say, it's practice and it's this and it's that, but I've really tried breaking it down. So I think one of the things to consider is you've only got 5%, so that's a small amount of space, but that is for every single task that you do. And the reason for that is we're overloaded with information and processing. So our brains are used to dumping loads of information because there's too much stimulus. There's so much stimulus, it's millions and millions of bits of information that we get bombarded with by the second. And our brain has to scan most of that out, which is why we need routines and habits to be able to process and work. Now, to change those, that's quite challenging on a physical level, on a mental level, on a behaviour level. And you've only got 5%. So knowing that it's only 5%, it's finding what's going to make the biggest change. So with a walking example, it's going to be more important for you to focus on walking when you're walking so that you can be really engaged in that activity and focus on it. Relax, get into a flow, get a bit of movement, because that muscle memory you'll be doing over an extended period of time. It's a bit like if you're thinking about, I'm working through losing some weight currently, so it's about changing my habits. So I eat good food, but I eat too much of it. So, okay, how can we change it? I've only got 5%. So one of the things that I'm looking at is doing intermediate fasting, which basically means I only eat from this period of time to this period of time. So I'm just not having breakfast first thing in the morning. I'm eating around lunchtime and then having an evening meal. That seems to be working quite well. But what it's doing is fundamentally getting me to change from the habit of always eating food first thing in the morning. So I'm stopping one thing, so that's a 5% thing. And then what I'm trying to do then is to alter what I'm eating throughout the day. The other thing that I'm trying to do is drink a lot more water. So I'm looking at drinking just 2 litres of water a day. So rather than not drinking things like coffee, which is one of my vices, it's looking very much at drinking more of something else. So to get into the habit of drinking more water, not trying to drink less of something. So it's about manifesting or making the positive bigger, so that by default the negative becomes less. So if I'm more hydrated and I've drank 2.5 litres of water in a day, I will then by default not need as much coffee because I'll be less thirsty. So there's less habits that I'm facilitating. Now, some things are easier to break than others, but the key thing is repetition. We've talked about that before, but the challenge comes, okay, how do we keep this repetition when 95% of our life is on this? And it's by breaking things down into much smaller elements. So for me, as I've said with diet, it's just said, right, I'm missing a eating period of time, so I just don't eat in the mornings. Okay, that's relative. I just don't do it, so I don't eat in the mornings. So if I don't eat in the mornings, by default, I'm eating less calories. That's great. I eat a bit less food. When I get to lunch, I make different choices. So rather than saying we have certain foods for breakfast, so it's okay. Yeah, okay, I can do without some of those. There's not a lot of choice. And it's processing time and all the other bits. So that's an easier thing to get rid of than it is to say, right, let's look at lots of meal prep. Let's look at changing how I eat. Let's look at little and often. Let's look at supplements and all the other elements. There's too many variables. There's too many 5% you're trying to change, because every single aspect is a 5%. So I would recommend for people to look at certain things that they want to change. Maybe look at 3 to 6 things maximum in a week, but it's looking at small changes. So if I've said, right, I need to do a bit of exercise, 6 minutes walk. Now, 6 minutes walk, you look, that's not going to make that much difference. But if I tell you that the research that was done for 30 minutes of exercise, which is optimal per day, sort of 5 times a week, was really good for optimal health, health benefits were found doing 6 minutes of walking every day. So it's a health benefit to walk for 6 minutes, but for optimal health, you need to walk for 30. And that's continuously. So the idea is it's brisk and it's making you work hard. If you think about 6 minutes, it is literally rushing somewhere for 3 minutes, turning around and rushing back. So you can incorporate that even into a lunch hour, just moving from one building to another, maybe a few stairs and other bits, and then coming back. It's almost like going to a canteen and then coming back to eat your lunch, that type of thing. So within that, to incorporate some health benefits for activity, 6 minutes is long enough, and it's easier to incorporate. What I'm trying to say is to break things down so that you do smaller changes. So all I've looked at is, right, okay, I've got to drink 2 litres of water a day, and I'm not eating breakfast when I eat breakfast normally. 2 simple things. Obviously then within that, that's starting to change a habit. It's starting to break something. It's making things differently. And it's about saying, okay, well, that's just what I do, so that's my new thing. But it's an easier thing to check yourself on. If you think about most diets, most people struggle over that week. There's always, cheat meals, these things that you can do psychologically to help so it doesn't feel as bad. And all I've done is said, okay, well, I'll just eat a bit less by having 1 less meal. So straight away, it's not a third less, but it's going to be a percentage less. And the key thing is that you're okay. You're not going to suddenly fall apart and die. I'm carrying way too many calories. So if I'm carrying way too many calories, I'm not going to run out of energy. And I think the key thing is that it's that scarcity. So straight away, I've changed the habit. I've changed the way I'm looking at things. I've got plenty of options and plenty of things. There's a lot more options that you can do for a lunch or for an evening meal that you would traditionally do for a breakfast. If you think about it, you've got cereal, toast, and maybe some sort of cooked food, whether it's an omelette, whether it's bacon, whether it's eggs, those type of things. But you've really got 3 sort of ranges. Suddenly you go into the lunch mode, there's a lot of other choices that are normal. So yes, you could eat salad for breakfast with fish or something else, which would be deemed as very healthy. But that's another habit to break. Well, I don't eat salad in the morning. I don't eat that for breakfast. That's odd. So you've got other habits that you've got to overcome by taking a simple thing out and then looking at reinforcing a habit at a different stage. It's easier because you haven't got to try and break then other things. Because one of the challenges is that habits invariably are in a stack. So anything that you do is in a process of lots of other things. So you've gradually learned things and built it up. So you've got better and better and better and better at doing something. And that's with lots of small changes over invariably quite a long period of time. So habits, a key thing to look at is to look at breaking down what you need to change, but thinking about something, okay, what's going to make the biggest input? What is going to make the change? So for me, I knew that eating less would help. Okay, how can I do that? I could have smaller plates, smaller portions, smaller this, smaller that. But habit-wise, you're always in growing. Okay, well, one of the simpler ways is just to eat, instead of having 3 meals a day, to have 2. Straight away, I've reduced the amount of calories. It might not be enough. It might not make a massive progress straight away. But straight away, you're changing the habit. So you're changing something that's easy to change, but it's also easy to reinforce. I don't eat till lunchtime. I drink more water in the morning. So the key thing with habits is to look at what's going to make the biggest change, the biggest impact. So I know that I want to lose weight and get fitter. So the exercise habit for me has been much easier to incorporate. I'm doing a lot of walking, I'm walking on a regular basis. So that's a small part of the equation. A bigger part of the equation is looking at what I'm eating. So I know that that's going to have a much bigger impact on my fitness, but also my athletic performance and all the other features. So it's identifying with habits which thing is worth changing at a highest level, what's going to make the biggest difference. And it's trying to break it down to try and get down to one area. And then, okay, if that's going to make the biggest difference, how can I alter my habits to be able to support that big change? So in my personal journey, I've looked very much at saying, okay, I need to eat less. Let's eat one less meal. So straight away, there's less stuff. I'm eating less times. I've got 2 different meals. I've then looked at the positives about food types so that I can have more choice. So then I can make more choices, and then we can look at portions and other bits. But it's looking very much at making that first change so that you get used to that first positive change. Then you add another positive change on the top, then another positive change, then another positive change. So coming back to walking, you can do walking, programmed, all the other stuff. Think about your feet, heel, toe, all the other features. But once you can do that relaxed in a regular dynamic mode when you're doing concentrated walking, the more you practice that, the more it'll overlay then into everyday life. So it becomes more and more your natural movement style. But that does take a bit of time. Now they say for habit change, it can range from anything from 30 days up to 90 days. And there's quite a lot of specifics in between there with practice and how often you're repeating something. I think habits for long-term change can take quite a lot longer than that. And you tend to find that initially you focus a lot and then you start to focus a bit less. And then you might pick it up again and then you might drop off and then pick up again. So I think there's a lot more challenges to habit change because I think people forget that habits, what you might see as one thing is actually a stack. So there might be 10 or 15 things that build up that one habit element. And it's about looking at how you can change something to break things down into smaller segments. Right then, thanks very much for your time and we'll catch up soon.